Good evening, guys. It is Saturday night. It is Pontificating with Pete on Revolutionary Change. Hope you're all doing well. We have got quite a bit to cover tonight, and I have to say, if for no other reason, however temporary, if you even want to call this a ceasefire from the U.S.-Iran perspective, we all know what Israel is doing, and we'll get to them. But right now, there have been a number of domestic issues that I had been wanting to get to, and tonight's going to be a really good opportunity to do it. And I contemplated whether or not there was anything in particular regarding electoral politics that I thought was worth covering. And I am going to cover, to start, what's going on right now with Eric Swalwell. Now, I think there's probably been times in the past where I've talked about him, and obviously, it's always been, I want to set sort of the stage for everybody who may not be too familiar with the San Diego congressman. So Eric Swalwell, as he should be known, this is one of the, Jen, can I please get a like and share? I don't want to be typing and talking at the same time. So if you could just get that set. So guys, if you haven't smashed that like button yet, as Hospitaller Night, Hospitaller Night has indicated. Smash that like button, so let's get this out to as many people as possible. I haven't completely gotten my lighting situation figured out as of yet. So right now, you're going to have the shadows behind me for a little while, maybe for another 20 minutes or so, and then things will look nice and intimate. But for the time being, if you haven't hit that like button, please make sure that you do. It's the only tax we ask you to pay when you come to our show, and it doesn't actually cost anything. It's just a request. It's a request that actually goes a very long way in helping us continue to build our channel. As you know, and anybody who follows us on the regular knows that we are habitually suppressed, buried, whatever you want to call it. YouTube doesn't want to take us out, but they certainly want to take us down, and they're doing a hell of a job. So the only way we really beat it is by each and every one of you playing a very small role in the process, but a very vital role nonetheless. If you like the stream, if you comment on the stream, and if you share the stream, that makes all the difference in the world, and it doesn't cost you anything. If you do want to become a financial contributor to our work, we certainly appreciate that as well. So, that said, Eric Swalwell. He's been in Congress for a number of years, and he has quite the reputation. That's the nicest way I could describe it. He has a reputation, and not one that I would be writing home about, but a reputation nonetheless. Eric Swalwell is somebody who was at the forefront of the Russiagate nonsense that started in earnest back in 2016 when it came to the releasing of the WikiLeaks files by Julian Assange, showing systematically how the Democratic Party, on behalf of Hillary Clinton, led by Debbie Wasserman Schultz, rigged the Democratic primary against Bernie Sanders. Then from there, it was taken up several notches to, well, how are we going to whitewash this one? How are we going to convince the rubes out there that, don't believe your lying eyes? Well, what they decided to do was go through a systematic, across-the-board messaging scenario where everyone was all saying the same thing. The Russians did it. The Russians hacked it. Of course, we all know that that's not the case. Seth Rich, rest in peace. But that didn't stop there. And it certainly didn't stop Swalwell from doing the same thing, saying that Trump was an agent of Russia, and that's exactly why he got elected. The Russians stepped in. And so, lo and behold, he becomes somewhat of a prominent figure within the Democratic Party establishment. He starts feeling his oats and thinking he's going to be a big shot. Now, everyone always suspected that he was going, because again, all of these guys that are out there that use their platform for the sole purpose of, kabuki theater, if you will, grandstanding for the cameras, which Swalwell does quite often, that he was eventually going to make a move to try to obtain a higher office. Well, the office in question he's trying to obtain right now is the governorship of California. Now, believe it or not, he is actually the leading Democrat percentage-wise in a field of, I would say, probably about 10 candidates. I wish I could say that friend of the show, Butch Ware of the Green Party, was doing better than he is, but money talks and justice walks, especially in a statewide race. And so right now, Swalwell has been at the forefront of the Democratic candidates. Now, I preface that with Democratic candidates because it turns out that he is not actually in the lead. The Democrats have a very big problem on their hands in California. Now, I know everybody is under the pretense that, the Democrats are going to clean up in the midterms, and they may very well do that at the federal level, but at the state level, that's not always a guarantee. We've seen that before, even back in 2018 when Trump was on the ropes. He's obviously a lot more on the ropes now. We'll see what happens as we go forward. But, the one thing that I do want to point out is that when the two leading candidates in the state of California are on the GOP side, you've got a very big problem on your hands. And the Democrats know this, and they don't want to take any chances. So, is the timing unique in what Swalwell is, kind of caught up in right now? Yes, absolutely. Without question, he has been put to the forefront on the chopping block. Now, the question becomes, if he falls, who's going to pick up the pieces? Who is going to be the person that's going to step up? Now, the reason this is a problem is because the top two candidates in California, again, California has the jungle primary, which means the top two candidates, regardless of party, are who go to the general. The election is less than 2 months away. It's at the beginning of June. So they can't mess around anymore because people are starting to fill out their absentee ballots. Voting is now starting to become real, and they cannot afford this because if California, it is a small possibility, but if it happens, if California were to have two candidates at the top that go to the general that are from the GOP, obviously the GOP is going to win the statewide race, and the state of California is going to change overnight, like significantly change overnight in terms of demographic, in terms of voting. Districts will probably be reshaped. There's a lot of things that'll happen. But what I want to be very clear with here is that, number one, I believe the allegations against Swalwell are absolutely true. The first reason I believe that is because of the Fang scenario that should have kicked him out of Congress. People forget Eric Swalwell is somebody that has already been caught having an affair with a Chinese spy. How this did not get this guy kicked out of Congress, I will never know. But that's usually because, again, the call is always coming from inside the house. Everybody protects everybody. And that's why when you wonder, why is it that Wasserman and Schultz never fell on the sword? It's because they all look out for each other. Every last one of them, no matter how much dirt there is. Trump is a unique situation here. But overall, the system protects itself. And so if Swalwell falls, the remaining candidates are Tom Steyer, billionaire, Katie Porter, raging against everybody and loving Israel, and a handful of other municipal elected officials that are running for governor. Is it a guarantee that if Swalwell is forced out of the race, that all of a sudden, one of those Democrats is all of a sudden going to just pick up all of his voters and move to the forefront and make it a Democrat guaranteed to the general? I'm not so sure about that because I don't see anybody getting out of the way for anybody else. That's one thing that I am very confident in. Right now, you have, as crazy as this is, there are 61 candidates running for governor in California. Now, how many of those candidates are legitimate? I would say you have Xavier Becerra, you have Matt Mahan, you have Katie Porter, you have Tom Steyer, you have Swalwell, you have Antonio Villagrosa, then you have Chad Bianco, the sheriff, who I believe is from Riverside County, and then you have Steve Hilton, former Fox News Brit turned gubernatorial candidate. Hey, anything's possible. But those are your top 8, if you will, candidates. Now, if Swalwell falls, is the next candidate automatically going to scoop all of his support? I'm not convinced of that. and I don't know why anybody would, but here's what Swalwell had to say in response to the allegation from 4 different women that have said that they, in one way, shape, or form, have been sexually assaulted by this guy.
Anonymous allegations. And I thought it was important that you see and hear from me directly.
Now, I don't know what the problem is because this video is not appearing in the queue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove it and upload it again. And hopefully this time it'll work. I am actually managing the show all by myself tonight, guys. So bear with me. I am pulling double duty. Colin needed some R&R. So he is allowed out of the dungeon for the time being. And, you know, we'll see what happens. I hopefully will be able to handle this on my own. All right, so let's try this again. All right, well, we are having technical difficulties already on the stream, so I'm going to have to figure out what the problem is here and see what I can do. Just bear with me for 1 second, guys. Difficulties. And let's see if this is the case for every video. No, it's not. Wait, Jen, no, don't. That's not what I'm trying to do. All right, let's try this. All right, so we've definitely got a technical problem here. So I'm not really sure. Yeah, I know the audio is fine, but for some reason the video is not popping up, and I don't know what that is. Again, this is why, you know, you're not supposed to leave until everything is set in stone. I had tested it earlier though, so that's what's a little weird here. Yeah, so I don't know what that is. I know that I had uploaded one of the videos before, and it came up okay. So let me try. Gonna have to get. You know what? That is an interesting point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let me. It's a thought. Let's see if it works. We'll try. Nope. Wait.
And hear from me directly. These allegations of sexual assault are flat false. They are absolutely false. They did not happen. They have never happened, and I will fight them with everything that I have. They also come on the eve of an election where I have been the frontrunner candidate for governor in California.
All right, he's not wrong. He's actually correct about this. Swalwell, he is actually the leading candidate right now for the gubernatorial election in California. So he is not without merit on that part. Now, again, do I think he is very likely guilty of what is being charged of him? Yes, absolutely. But remember this, politics is a very dirty game. And if you get involved with the wrong person at the wrong time, it will come back and get you. Maybe not immediately, but at some point it will.
I do not suggest to you in any way that I'm perfect or that I'm a saint. I have certainly made mistakes in judgment in my past, but those mistakes are between me and my wife. And to her, I apologize deeply for putting her in this position.
All right, so he's admitting infidelity right there. So he wants to get out in front of the fact that he sleeps around. What a shock. But is it true that he did things that he shouldn't have done? That's hard to prove it. Once you have been proven to be somebody who is very suspicious, to say the least, in particular, with the relationship he had with the Chinese spy, that will hang over him until he's out. But here's the reason why we know, no matter what anybody says, that this is a political hit job, even though he's very likely guilty. They're only asking him to drop out of the gubernatorial race. They're not asking him to drop out from Congress. They're not telling him that you need to resign from Congress. They're only saying you need to step away from the gubernatorial race. Very convenient.
I also apologize to you if in any way you have doubted your support for me. But I think you know who I am. For over 20 years, I have served the public as a city councilman, as a member of Congress, and as a prosecutor who went to court on behalf of victims, particularly on behalf of sexual assault victims. That's who I am and have always been. This weekend, I'm going to spend time with my family and friends. And I appreciate those who have reached out to me to show support. And I look forward to updating you very soon.
Yeah. This is not going to end well for him. I think it is very likely he's going to get pushed out. And whether it's because they're going to make him an offer he can't refuse, I think it really comes down to the fact that the internal polling is scaring the shit out of them. They think, because again, the top two candidates, Bianco and Hilton, who are both in the GOP, they have been consistently in the lead, consistently, and not by, a fraction of a point, by like 3 points. So that should be very concerning. And it is. Like I said, voting in California starts very soon. It is Congressman Eric Swalwell is his real name. I think he's California's 35th district, if I remember correctly. San Diego. And so, again, an AIPAC whore, Russia-gator, pro-Ukraine war, pro-Israel. So you get the point. There's really nothing here to celebrate about this guy, nor should there be. Good point. So why do I think he's going to be forced out of the race? Why do I think that there is a very high likelihood that he's not going to survive this? The biggest reason, above all others, that I do believe he is in big trouble is because one of the women that he was involved with, and this is not something that he's denying, this is something that has become pretty well documented in political circles. For those of you who do not know who Ali Samarco, that's her name. So Ali Samarco, like a lot of other people out there, is a political operative. And a political operative that plays both sides of the aisle. This is somebody who had previously worked for the GOP and now works for the Democratic Party. She is the boyfriend, or girlfriend, I should say. She is the girlfriend of Adam Parkhomenko, I think is how you say his name. Now, why does this matter? Because these are Democratic operatives. If you screw around with a Democratic operative, you're just asking to be taken out. Never shit where you eat, especially if you have ambition, and fuck around in more ways than one with somebody who also has political ambition. Now, I'm going to show you a photograph. So this is who she is. She's very popular on Instagram. She's also on X. You know, they have their following, and you can imagine that most, if not all, of what she talks about is all typical political cannon fodder. No, her boyfriend is not the guy on the left. It's actually the guy on the right. If anybody knows anything about Democratic Party politics and the sleaze that is this political system that we're stuck in right now, these two are two of the sleazier people that do the type of ops for the Democratic establishment that you could possibly imagine. Now, when Swalwell decided to get in bed with this girl, he had everything coming his way as a result of this. Now, did they sleep together 5 minutes ago? I highly doubt it. But do I think they slept together and she was going to use this against him whenever it was politically expedient and convenient for her to do so? 1,000%. And the guy that she's dating, who is on her left, he is the same way. He is a Democratic Party operative, and they do what they have to do to advance their career. That's it. The Democratic establishment told them, we got to get rid of Swalwell. He's not polling well enough. We can't push ahead. And he's not moving it. The needle is not moving for this guy. We're in a lot of trouble. Now, do I think that they're going to rally behind Tom Steyer and that's where the support's going to go? Probably not. I think at the end of the day, they know that Katie Porter is a player and that she'll go along to get along. She'll do exactly as she's told, no matter what she used to do. And that's where I think this is heading. So if you want to understand how these pieces connect in the grand scheme of the political arena that we play in on a daily basis, this is it in real time. Ambitious, halfway decent looking congressman in San Diego, where there's a lot of money. He's got a lot of ambition. He wants to go for the brass ring. He sucks off the establishment as hard as any whore possibly could. And of course, he is a floozy. So naturally, he thinks he's cock of the walk in DC. He probably has screwed around with a lot more than 4 women on his wife, which is why he apologized in that video. Not that he's accepting responsibility for potentially being a sexual assaulter. No, what he's doing is acknowledging the fact in public that, yeah, I'm a sleaze, I'm a cheater, but I'm not going to admit that I'm a rapist or an assaulter. Ali says he is. And in the end, the Democratic Party has a lot more use for people like her and her boyfriend than they do for Eric Swalwell. So good luck. You'll need it. You are hopefully going to be on your way out sooner rather than later. And that's just one of many. But do I think that the Democratic Party is going to be able to rally itself out of this predicament that they have in California? I'm not so sure about that. I think there's a lot of people in California that are probably not saying this out loud, but they're probably Democrats, and they're tired of the way the Democratic Party has run the state for the past 30 plus years. The last time they had an elected official that was in the GOP was Arnold in the air, but I destroyed the state of California. So now they might come back. We're coming back. It's over 20. It's basically 20 years. It's a long time. So do I think that a lot of people have basically just grown tired of what the party was ultimately doing? Yeah, I do. And I think in this case, the Democratic Party is scared shitless that they're losing and that they might actually lose. If the let me tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, the GOP could get shellacked, absolutely shellacked in the midterms. But if they win the governor's race in California, they would sign for it today. Get a complete wipeout by the Democrats at the federal level. But the trade-off is that they get to take over the state of California for at least 4 years. They'll do it in a heartbeat. Guaranteed. They will 1,000% take that trade. And I guarantee you right now, there's probably a lot of money that the GOP is pumping into California. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. When the numbers are suggesting that they have a chance to pull this off, then that means that they're going to go for it. And now that the Democrats are riddled with scandal, self-inflicted or not, I 1,000% believe that this is an op move on their part to get Swalwell out because he can't hold the bacon. That's what they're looking at. They're saying this guy's in the lead and he can't get ahead of these 2 GOP candidates. Something's wrong. Now it's going to get worse. So do I think it's a slam dunk? No. But I would definitely say that they've got a lot to be concerned about right now, and they should be. Speaking of scandal, you thought that scandal's bad? This scandal is even worse, and I can only credit my esteemed colleague for bringing it to my attention because I didn't know about it until early this morning. I do not pay as close attention to the gossip stuff as maybe a lot of other channels do. We really try to keep it focused on tangible politic, if you will, here. But as many of you know, the First Lady decided that she needed to make a public statement the other day. To what degree she thinks that this statement was going to be effective in a positive way is really beyond the pale, because she really still, even after 20 plus years, does not have a very good command of the English language. But Melania Trump made a formal announcement yesterday regarding her relationship, or lack thereof, with, well, you know who. So here we go.
Good afternoon. The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today.
First of all, she sounds like a robot, and I feel bad for her in that regard. But I think the bigger question here is, what possessed her to do this? Why did she feel the need to make a statement? We're going to get to that shortly. But no, well, here's the thing. I am beginning to believe more and more that she was trafficked to Trump. That I do believe now. So I do have some sympathy for her, despite what some people may think. I don't think she's necessarily a total victim in all of this, but I do think that there's something to be said for being a complicit participant for 30 years. Well, I don't even know if it's that long, but it's long enough. That's for sure.
The individuals lying about me are devoid of ethical standards, humility, and respect. I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation. I never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach. To be clear, I never had a relationship with Epstein.
I don't know. It's making it very difficult for me to believe that she's telling the truth. We all know that there is a lot of dirty behavior that goes on in these relationships. And there are those who really think that the Epstein story is going away. It's not going away. It's never going away. People need to understand that they're playing for keeps now. There are too many people in this country that are hurting, and they want to get to the bottom of this. Yeah, Colin forgot to start the Rumble stream. Not cool. Yeah, let me see if he's still around. So I apologize, guys, if you're watching on Rumble. I would never have done that, but I've actually never started the stream on Rumble before. So you can forgive me for that. But I'll see if Colin can hop on and get it started. Yeah, here's the problem. There's so many photos out there of them together. There's so many stories out there of them together. You can say that these things are not true, and I know a lot of people will have a tendency to say that. But like I said, she's really not getting any sympathy from anybody. She's kind of on her own, and whatever possessed her to do this it has to do a lot more with another element to this story, which we'll get to in a minute.
Or his accomplice, Maxwell. My email reply to Maxwell cannot be categorized as anything more than casual correspondence. My polite reply to her email doesn't amount to anything more than a trivial note.
Again, there is ample evidence that you had some type of at minimal, professional relationship with Epstein and Maxwell. So to come out here and deny that that is the case is not a good look. And the other thing that we've learned in politics, if we've learned anything over the years, when you catch somebody in power in a lie, there's probably about where there's, as Jen says, where there's one rat that you see, it's about 20 you can't see. But they're there behind the wall, and they're going to try to figure out, either how to stay quiet, or they're going to just scatter about, and you're going to see them all. And that's the problem. One lie begets another lie, and on and on and on the cycle goes, around and around and around. That's what happens. That's the danger here. So to do this is very, very strange. But again, there's more to it.
I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1998.
There is no way in hell. There is no way in hell that she met Trump by chance. No way. If there is one thing we can all universally agree on, and I'm not even going to go so far as to say it's a guarantee that the whole thing was a setup. But if you think that there was not very powerful people making sure that Melania was at the party because she could potentially have been a mate for Trump, oh, please. The idea that this is just a total happenstance that they got together at that level, no chance. None. I can't even get upset about it. It's just obvious that she's full of shit.
This initial encounter with my husband is documented in detail in my book, Melania. The first time I crossed paths with Epstein was...
Can we for a minute just address how pathetic that statement is? For anybody who decides, she's Slovenian, anybody who decides to plug their fucking book in this moment, oh man, that's like as bad, if not worse, than the Donald would do. No, but I would totally plug it. Great job, Melania. So yeah, very Trump-esque of you to plug your fucking book while you're trying to defend yourself against some pretty serious allegations.
Was in the year 2000 at an event Donald and I attended together. At the time, I had never met Epstein and had no knowledge of his criminal undertakings. Numerous fake images and statements about Epstein and me have been circulating on social media for years now. Be cautious about what you believe. These images and a witness or a named witness in connection with any of Epstein's crimes. My name has never appeared in court documents, depositions, victim statements, or FBI interviews surrounding the Epstein matter. I have never had any knowledge of Epstein abuse of his victims. I was never involved in any capacity. I was not a participant, was never on Epstein's plane.
You better be able to back that up. Epstein claims, this is what was claimed, and again, we've seen the writing. Epstein claims that he had Melania a year before Trump did. And he claimed that he had her on his plane. And he had her literally on his plane. And she's saying, no, that's not true. Well, let me assure you that if there is any proof that can be displayed that you were, you're in big trouble. You may be the First Lady of the United States, but this is a whole new fucking world we're living in now. This is a new world. Things are changing. And if you have been caught with your hand in the cookie jar, you're not getting it out. You can't make a statement like that and think you're not going to burn for it if you're lying. That's going to cost her big time if she's lying. And I believe she's lying.
And never visited his private island. I have never been legally accused or convinced of a crime in connection with Epstein's sex trafficking, abuse of minors, and other repulsive behavior. The false smears about me from mean-spirited and politically motivated individuals and entities looking to cause damage to my good name, to gain financially and climb politically, must stop.
Okay. I actually do agree with what Jen just posted. I do agree 100% that this is something that she did not do this on her own. She did not come up with this of her own volition. This is somebody who is in a very powerful position, whoever it may be, Susie Wilds maybe, I mean, who the hell knows? Stephen Miller maybe. Basically told her, you're going to say this. Like, you don't have a choice. You have to say this. So get to it, girl.
My attorneys and I have fought these unfounded and baseless lies with success and will continue to maintain my sound reputation without hesitation. To date, several individuals and companies have been legally obligated to publicly apologize and retract their lies about me, such as Daily Beast, James Carville, and HarperCollins, UK. Now is the time for Congress to act. Epstein was not alone. Several prominent male executives resigned from their powerful positions after this matter became widely politicized. Of course, this doesn't amount to guilt, but we still must work openly and transparently to uncover the truth. I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors.
Well, that's actually a pretty bold statement. You want to have a public hearing for all of the Epstein survivors? I can't imagine that the Donald appreciates that. James Carville. James Carville is a really wretched person. Let's not beleaguer the point. Some women have to work to do certain things for a living that maybe they're not always proud of. So, hey, it's 666. Guys, if you have not hit that like button yet, I cannot emphasize this enough. Our channel gets throttled left and right constantly. So if you are here and you are not square, please make sure that you smash that like button. It really helps the channel. We could use all the help we could get right now. We should be at 1,000 live viewers at this point, but we're at 657 now. So I am only asking, again, I am running this whole thing on my own tonight. So if you could be, as I've asked constantly, please put up the like message. So let's get this out there as much as we can. I know you would hit the like button, Alex Godmittens, because you are one of our OGs and one of our great supporters. So again, please hit the like button, please share the stream, and let's continue.
Give these victims their opportunity to testify under oath in front of Congress with the power of sworn testimony. Each and every woman should have her day to tell her story in public if she wishes, and then her testimony should be permanently entered into the congressional record. Then, and only then, we will have the truth. Thank you.
For Secretary Lutnick to continue serving.
So why would she do this? What's the motivator? Why exactly does she feel that this is a necessary move right now? And the only thing I can tell you is that the element of the story that is going to cause a big problem for a lot of people is a woman by the name of Amanda Ungaro. Now, my understanding is that Amanda, who is a Brazilian model, aren't they all? She was a close friend of Melania for what is being reported about 20 years. And the depths of this story is actually quite unique. Now, I'm going to pull this up. I don't know if all of these stories have as much relevance as the next, but I think it is imperative that people understand who she is. I know my screen is like glitching like crazy right now, so bear with me, guys. Hopefully I can share this without it being too much of a drag on the stream, but I want to get this out there. I want people to know what this is about. Who is a link in the chain when it comes to not only Melania, but also Donald, Epstein, etc. All right, let's try this one more time because I'm having trouble getting it to load up. Like I said, I wouldn't say I'm flying in the dark per se, but I'm definitely having some technical issues because I'm running this all on my own. But I really want to get this up there for you guys to see. I don't know why it's not appearing. All right, I think this might be it. Okay, here we go. Come on, you're this. We can do it. There we go. Come on. There we go. Okay. The ex-girlfriend of a former modeling agent turned presidential special envoy is threatening Melania Trump with legal action while vowing to tear down the First Lady's corrupt system. Amanda Ungaro, a 41-year-old former model from Brazil, threatened to upend the First Lady's life in a series of intensifying posts on X just hours before Trump on Thursday disavowed all ties to Jeffrey Epstein or knowledge of his crimes. I have nothing left to lose in my life, Ungaro posted on X on Thursday. I will tear down the entire system. Be careful with me. Well, you know the rest. Now, I'm not one to just judge on appearances, but this is Amanda Ungaro on the left, quite a striking woman. The short king on her right is a very powerful man named Paolo Zampoli. This was her husband for almost 20 years. And I believe there are some details within the story. Correct. No, I don't want to do this. Thank you. Appreciate the offer, though. A minute earlier, Ungaro, the former partner of Trump ally Paolo Zampoli, who is actually the person that is being reported, that it wasn't Epstein, that it was actually this guy. This is the person who introduced Melania to Trump. I will tear down your corrupt system, even if it's the last thing I do in my life. I will go all the way. I am not afraid. Maybe you should be afraid of what I know, of who you are and who your husband is. It's some pretty harsh words. In another reply to an archived post from Melania's former Lotus 45 account, Ungaro vowed to take legal action against Trump and her pedophile husband while alleging long-standing ties to the former model. I have known you for 20 years, Ungar-Sargon posted. You knew I was detained by ICE. You were present in my life every year of my son's birthday, even sending Secret Service and being the first to congratulate him back in 2016. Something was very clearly wrong, but I am not part of any evil mission involving children. So what did you do, Melania? You tried to involve me, but you failed because I have character. Newsweek, which could not independently confirm the authenticity of the allegations, reached out to Ungar-Sargon, who was deported to Brazil following her arrest on fraud charges last year, and the White House for comment on Friday. Zampoli, 56, who looks a lot older than 56, who is Trump's special envoy for global partnerships, also known as corrupt business wheelings and dealings, reached out to a top Immigrant and Customs Enforcement, ICE, official last June to relay that Ungar-Sargon was in the country illegally. The New York Times reported last month. That sure as hell looks like Trump and Jeffrey Boy. Ungar-Sargon was later deported, which may have occurred regardless of Zampoli's involvement, but the matter underscored the lengths federal government officials will go to settle scores during the second Trump administration. Zampoli denied asking ICE to detain Ungar-Sargon or any other favors, insisting he wanted to learn more about her case. DHS officials said she had been detained and ultimately deported because of an expired visa and fraud charges. Any suggestion that she was arrested and removed for political reasons or favors is false. That's what the DHS says. Here's where we know there's a part of the story that isn't getting talked about that actually matters. It turns out that Zampoli had her removed because they have a son together and he wants full custody of the child. He does not want her to have any. My understanding is that this man, Zampoli, illegally removed the son from, I want to say they were in Brazil, and he removed the son to bring him here to the States. That's my understanding. Could I be wrong? Could it be wrong? Possibly. But when you have a mother basically saying, I have nothing left to lose, he kidnapped the kid. That's when everything goes out the window. Anything's possible. And that's why, as Jen alluded to, Melania was basically told, you will go out and you will make this statement. Because they're in deep trouble right now. And that's why I think it's fair to say that pretty much anything she says that Ungar-Sargon is saying is true. Again, a very similar story with Trump. Zampoli, again, all of these modeling agencies, especially when they're young women or kids, yes, sex trafficking. Testing the vulva. These people are sick, but they're very powerful and they think they can get away with anything. But when you go after a devoted mother's child, which is probably the only thing in the world that makes sense to her because of the complete lie of a life that she lived with a very powerful man who was punching 3 or 4 ladder steps above his pay grade to be with a woman that is as beautiful as her. Yeah, she's guilty. But you know what? Sometimes the best witnesses or the best truth tellers are the ones that are guilty parties and have decided that no matter what happens to me, I'm going to let everybody know what's really going on. And that's where we are. Zampoli and Trump, fixtures in the New York nightlife scene since the 90s, have repeatedly recalled how the modeling agent introduced him to Melania Naus at the Kit Kat Club in 98 after recruiting her, yeah, that's a good word, from Slovenia. Zampoli also once discussed buying a modeling agency with Epstein, and his name appears several times in the documents pertaining to the convicted sex offender released by the Justice Department. Zampoli insisted he didn't have a close relationship with Epstein. Another lie that I'm sure is easily debunked, appearing far less frequently in the millions of documents than other prominent figures. At least I was included, because if you're not on the list, you're a loser, right? That's funny. Zampoli also recalled the fateful Melania-Donald meeting during an interview Friday, reiterating that he, not Epstein, introduced the pair. I'm ready to testify in front of Congress if asked. And I'll say the truth, because this is totally nonsense. What a wall of shame. Ungaro, meanwhile, told the Times she was a 17-year-old model when she arrived in New York in 2002, after flying on Epstein's plane from Paris with her French agent. She never saw Epstein again, but met Zampoli later that year and began a 2-decade romantic relationship with him beginning when she was 19. So this guy was pushing 40, and he's fucking around with a 19-year-old. That's what men do, right? Powerful men especially. Got to get them young. Got to corrupt them early. In 2023, after Zampoli made headlines for explicit text messages he allegedly sent to a sex worker, Ungaro ended the relationship, moved to Florida, and married a doctor from Brazil. The former couple then became mired in a custody battle for their 15-year-old son before Ungaro and her husband were arrested in June. Ungaro recalled flying on Epstein's so-called Lolita Express in an interview last month. You're damn right we do. I was a little scared when I saw all those girls. I was like, guys, where am I? Ungaro said her former agent, Jean-Luc Brunel, a real fucking winner if there ever was one, who acted as Epstein's scout in Brazil, according to the Justice Department, introduced her to Epstein during the flight. Epstein then asked Ungaro her age and hometown, prompting Epstein's longtime associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, to react emphatically, she recalled. Pictures don't lie, Melania. Especially this one. Well, that's cool that you're from Brazil. Ungaro said she kept to herself during the flight, but noticed how many passengers seemingly knew Epstein immediately. Some of them sat on his lap, stayed close, playing. It gave the impression that she already knew those girls. It didn't seem like a chance meeting. Those people had not just met, as was my case. This is just the beginning. This is going to get a hell of a lot worse, a hell of a lot quickly. You know, not that I would tie this in from a sports perspective, but kind of like what's going on right now with Vrabel and Rossini. Where there is one rat, there are plenty more. And as soon as you get caught in a lie, you are in deep shit. That's how this works. And that's how it always will. And I want to be very clear. Many of you probably saw the list that came out recently about the different content creators that have been basically pumped up through social media. Remember, guys, this is a career for a lot of people. This is about making money. And I want to, I don't want to be singling people out specifically because, again, I understand that people have to make a living. I'm not disputing that, and Jen wouldn't either. But at what cost are you willing to throw people under the bus? And therein lies, again, this whole nasty charade that we call politics. But as the walls continue to close in on Trump, not just Melania. Melania is just a pawn in this thing. And boy, but you know what? She's got a lot more power than a pawn. She's more like a bishop. Backline defense in trouble. I want to be very clear that people will gravitate towards certain politicos because they see them as leaders. They see them as intelligent. They see them as being with it. And as Jen often says, people need upper management. So the same is true for those that are seeking that through various political outlets. Now, I'm not going to pull up, because I can't, because as you know, the streaming is a little bit of an issue here. Why? Because she only goes straight forward. She doesn't go side to side. Okay, maybe. That's fair. I want everyone here on our stream who may or may not like Nick Fuentes to understand something. The thing about certain content creators is that occasionally they're going to give you information that's valuable. If it's valuable, take it with a grain of salt. But understand that there are bigger forces at play with people who get to certain levels. I don't joke around. Jen, stop doing that, please. I want people to understand that while Fuentes is a very gifted orator and very knowledgeable on a lot of issues, he is not above board and he is not your friend. Just be very clear about that. You can listen to people that are not your friend and get the information that you need. But I'm pulling this up because it describes in good detail the absolute mind-blowing tirade that Trump went on post Melania's statement. And all the while, Fuentes is, well, he's playing the role that he was born to play.
Jumps on True Social and he just tears Alex Jones, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, Tucker, and Marjorie Greene a fucking new asshole in this 500-word devastating truth nuke, orbital strike, rods of God bomb of a post. And I don't know why I like it, because directionally I agree with all these people, but there's something that I just like about this. Anyway, so this is the post. This is Trump. He says, I know why Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones have all been fighting me for years, especially by the fact that they think it is wonderful for Iran, the #1 state sponsor of terror, to have a nuclear weapon, because they have one thing in common: low IQs.
You know, I've got the lowest IQ of them all. I just like to talk with my big hands. My name is Nicholas Fraudster Fuentes. I'm a Fed. But this slop, this online slop that we talk about every day, I'm a big part of it, and it pays well. Do you see the super chats he gets? Man, people empty out their bank accounts for this guy.
Stupid people. They know it, their families know it, and everyone else knows it too. Look at their past. Look at their record. They don't have what it takes, and they never did. They've all been thrown off television, lost their shows. They're not even invited on TV because nobody cares about them. They're nut jobs, troublemakers, and will say anything necessary for some free and cheap publicity. Now they think they get some clicks because they have third-rate podcasts.
I don't know what you think is so funny about this, because the fact of the matter is there is nothing third-rate about Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens. Even Megyn Kelly has a sizable show, even though I don't trust her as far as I can throw her. I also am not going to, listen, my opinion of Alex Jones has always been the same. He got what he had coming to him with Sandy Hook. That doesn't mean that he hasn't been prophesizing pretty knowledgeable stuff over the years that he's proven to be right about. And so for Fuentes to be piggybacking on Trump as he continues to spiral out of control, you can see what he's doing, right? He's just trying to make sure that he scoops up as many crumbs from the crumbling MAGA empire that he can for his own, his own empire that he's trying to build. There could not be any other logical explanation, because this is slop. All of what he is saying is slop. Trump is demented. He is absolutely demented. It's absolutely fascinating that you would think, in this case, so much of the jealousy that comes with how he runs his operation, that people would eventually pick up on the fact that he acts like a Fed. He is completely denied the Charlie Kirk Israel connection, which to me automatically makes you guilty. You're automatically guilty if you denounce the idea that Israel had anything to do with Charlie's assassination. And Nick has done that repeatedly. Iran is the number one sponsor of terror. Yeah.
But nobody's talking about them, and their views are the opposite of MAGA, or I wouldn't have won the presidential election in a landslide. MAGA agrees with me and just gave CNN a 100% approval rating of Trump, not hand-flailing fools like Tucker, who couldn't even finish college. He was a broken man when he got fired from Fox, and he's never been the same. Perhaps he should see a good psychiatrist. Or Megyn Kelly, who nastily asked me the now famous only Rosie O'Donnell question. Or crazy Candace Owens, who accuses the highly respected First Lady of France of being a man when she is not, and will hopefully win lots of money in the ongoing lawsuit. Actually, to me, the First Lady of France is a far more beautiful woman than Candace.
Okay. When you make a statement like Brigitte Macron is more beautiful than Candace Owens, you truly are a hater. Candace Owens is beautiful, and Brigitte Macron is melting. But believe me when I tell you, I have the best taste, totally the best taste. Listen, I like the colored girls. They're decent people, but listen, Bridget, she's a Frenchie. She probably invented the French kiss. Hey, maybe Trump's gay. Who knows? Maybe he secretly likes the what do they call them? What do they call them in Thailand? Femboy. There's like a name for it. I forget what they call them. Not girly boys. There's a name for it. There's like a specific name for for what they're, whatever. The point is, the idea that you would make a statement like that, so it is femboy. So I was right. Thank you, Kim, and I appreciate it. You really have to be at such a level of adolescence in your discourse to say that, oh, well, Candace is totally ugly. She's not even as pretty as Brigitte Macron, and she's pretty ugly. That's pretty pathetic. And meanwhile, Fuentes, acting like the fucking child that he is, thinks that this is funny. Because first of all, he's just, again, a complete adolescent, even though he's pushing 30, I think. But this is the thing. When you're terminally online, this is what you're going to get. I know you think this is funny, but it's not. By the way, Trump just issued an endorsement statement for Lindsey Graham in his Senate race in South Carolina. Meaning that he's a douchebag. That's just gay. And he is very gay in that regard.
In fact, it's not even close. Or bankrupt Alex. I love how it just goes on and on. It just keeps going. He writes, or bankrupt Alex Jones, who says some of the dumbest things and lost his entire fortune, as he should have, for his horrendous attack on the families of the Sandy Hook shooting victims, ridiculously claiming it was a hoax. It's like, and I shouldn't. Why is this so funny to me?
I talk about the slop and the crap and everything all the time. And that's why I get paid. That's why you like it. This is pathetic. There is no mission here. There never was. How did he get you in the first place? How does he get anybody? As I said, he's a good orator. He knows his shit, but he's also a joke. It's nails on the chalkboard, ain't it?
Because you know me, I love Alex, and I love, he's really the only one I like, I guess, but there's something so funny that this is the president of the United States just lighting these niggas up, just lighting them up on Truth Social, and because they all supported him.
I like how he tries to be edgy and he uses the N-word with an A and not an R, thinking that that's edgy too. You're not edgy. You're not edgy. You're just a dickhead. Like you're not, that doesn't make you cool. It makes you look like a dumbass. The only time that you actually look defendable, I don't even use that word. The only time you seem reasonable is when you're stuck next to Lil Ben Shapiro. That's about it. Outside of that, you're on your own, pal.
For like a decade and voted for him and shilled for him. And then he just lights him up. He writes, or bankrupt Alex Jones, who says some of the dumbest things, lost his entire fortune, as he should have, for his horrendous attack on the families of the Sandy Hook shooting victims, ridiculously claiming it was a hoax. These so-called pundits are losers, and they always will be. Now, fake news CNN, the failing New York Times, and all of the other radical left news organizations are hailing them and giving them positive press for the first time in their lives. They are not MAGA. They are losers, just trying to latch on to MAGA. As president, I could get them on my side anytime I want to, but when they call, I don't return their calls because I'm too busy on world and country affairs. And after a few times, they go nasty, just like Marjorie Trader Brown. But I no longer care about that stuff. I only care about doing right for our country. MAGA is about winning and strength and not allowing Iran to have nuclear weapons. MAGA is about making America great again, and these people have no idea how to do that. But I do.
As I said, in the grand scheme of the conversation, Trump has completely lost his mind, and he has lost his ability to control the narrative. And we're going to get to why that is the case in a minute. But it is very important that people understand why this is so significant. There is this legitimate split that is happening in this country right now between what I consider to be the anti-war libertarian right movement that is America First. And then you have the neocon, neolib. You want to call it MAGA, MIGA, you could call it whatever you want. My MIGA is a terrible movement, and it's going to fail. Not yet, but we're on our way. I hope that enough people will start to see through the bullshit that is Nick Fed Fuentes, as I like to call him. We'll finish it out.
Because the U.S. is the hottest country in the world. And that is the 500-word message, the literally 500-word Truth Social post from our fearless president of the United States, Donald Trump. And I suppose it speaks for itself. So he really hates these people. And what really is there to say about it that hasn't already been said? He has betrayed MAGA.
It's a shame. But I hope that there is a lesson here that you all can take if you are still listening to this guy. As I said, everything is about the grift for somebody like Fuentes. And I am still seeing a swath of people that think this guy, I definitely agree. But there are still a lot of people out there that want to gloss over these statements, that want to pretend like he doesn't say this, and want to pretend like he's not part of the problem. He wasn't named because he doesn't have as big of an impact. Nick is also about the Bucks. But you really have to wonder, how long can you do a shit posting podcast? Like, could it really last for that? Could it last for a career? Is that possible? That's the bigger question. What is the motivation here? Do you really think that this can continue to last the way that it has? I don't. But I'll tell you where there's a really big, there's an inflection point happening right now. Jen has said, not from the very beginning, but pretty much after Trump's ear healed pretty quickly, that there was something really wrong about what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. Now, did they really try to kill him? Maybe. But who did? Who wanted Trump dead? I think it's pretty clear now that some very powerful people wanted him dead because he wasn't going to play ball. The second you decide you're not playing ball with the powers that be is the second you are in a situation where you could very well meet your maker. Now, maybe what actually happened in Butler was a test to let him know who's really in charge. Whatever the case is, many people have suggested that Trump was never the same after that assassination attempt. And here's a person with an actual platform that Fuentes only wishes he had, no matter how many deals with the shadow government he's willing to make in order to be relevant. Here's somebody who actually understands why this is so significant, especially right now when everyone's asking, how in the hell do we keep sinking into war with Iran, expanded war in Lebanon, and so on? Here's Candace.
Comment and share something that I hadn't shared before. And I don't know if it means something, but it's something that has always lived inside of me, which was something that Charlie Kirk told me before he passed and something that Andrew Colvett confirmed to me. This is, again, when everybody was good. And obviously things are not the same between me and Andrew Colvett because I don't believe him. I just don't believe him.
Neither do I.
But before it was announced that Miriam Adelson gave Trump $100 million, this was, I think it was announced in July or just before July of 2024. And I was told by Charlie that he and Andrew Colvett were present for that meeting with Donald Trump. And the reason that Charlie told me the story, and again, I could go back and try to figure out when exactly the discussion happened. I want to say it was May. So I knew that that money went through and I knew what she wanted in exchange for $100 million. What Charlie and Andrew Colvett told me was that she said that she wanted in exchange for Trump to allow them to annex not Gaza, but the West Bank. I was stunned by this. I think it has since made the news. But of course, this is like a totally different pretense than October 7th. Hamas is not in the West Bank. And
that's a very inconvenient truth now, isn't it? Hamas is not in the West Bank, which means that the entire time that they have said that this is about stopping Hamas has always been bullshit. And there's a lot of people out there who are useful idiots in this country that will continue to espouse such a ridiculous message. But that is the country we live in. We are not the sharpest knives in the drawer. And so, as I said at the top, you get people to talk about Russiagate in the same vein that people talk about, well, it's Hamas, we got to deal with Hamas. And now it's Hezbollah, we got to deal with Hezbollah. No, we need to deal with Israel. Israel is the bane of our existence. And that is the whole point.
And that is what she wanted in exchange. After she said this to Trump, Trump went, he was wherever Charlie was, Trump was adjusting his tie and looking in the mirror, and he said, I'm going to take her money and then I'll F her over. Okay. I am hearing this from Charlie, who was there first person, and Andrew, who confirmed this. Andrew was also there. That nobody else was there but Andrew and Charlie when Trump said this. A few weeks later, there was the Butler attempted assassination. And I find it very strange that Donald Trump is not interested, or has appeared to be completely disinterested in determining who fired that shot. There were a lot of holes in that story. I didn't go down that rabbit hole. But I do know that once you assume office and you have the power to get more information and put more information out there, it's weird that he was satisfied just moving on from that.
I don't think he was satisfied. I think he just understood that you don't want to dive into this. You just have to understand how the game is played and how this works. There are so many holes in all of these stories. We're not going to hopefully be their human shield for much longer. Israel is in probably a lot more trouble than people think, which is great. Guys, if you haven't smashed that like button, we haven't passed 800 live viewers tonight. That's always our baseline minimum. Smash that like button if you haven't yet. Share the stream if you can. Really appreciate all the help. I think Candace is touching on an issue here that has always been at the forefront of the problem. Did he need to take $100 million from Miriam Adelson? Or did he take it because he just doesn't know how to say no to money and power? What was Miriam Adelson going to do to help him win the election? Yeah, okay, another $100 million, that's nice. But in the end, what purpose does it serve if he already knows what he's going to be forced to do? He had to know what the conscription, if you will, was to that $100 million. And of course, he had a pretty good idea. How could he not know? He's already dealt with the Adelsons for years. They totally wanted the Golan Heights. I gave him the Golan Heights. I told him I'd get it done. And he did. Gave him the Golan Heights. But that wasn't enough. And it never will be. And as I've said many a times, as you guys have been following our channel, when it comes to Israel and the Zionist cause, you can never do enough. They can never be satisfied with the work you've done. It's only what have you done for me lately that matters. You're only as good as the last deal that you made with them. Otherwise, you could be on the chopping block. That's how they get a puppet whore like Larry Looney Loomer to attack Donald after he suggests that, well, maybe we don't really need this war with Iran. No, you do, because we say so. And you have Loomer go out there and attack. Hey, that shouldn't surprise anybody. This is where we are. But the more we discuss these critical issues, the more people will continue to notice the great noticing, if you will, that's happening. It is imperative on our part. And yeah, apparently, Loomer's real enough that she cost me my job. So I'm not going to stop talking about her and what a reckless fuck that she is. But hey, Mossad decided that I had to lose my job. Okay. I'm not crying. I'm going to keep speaking truth to power. That's what we're all here to do. That's our job. That's the real job. That's the job that has teeth. That's the job that has impact. So let's keep doing it. And let's continue.
And I do remember watching Don Trump Jr. on stage when someone sort of prodded him on that and like, you know, are you satisfied with the conclusion of what happened in Butler? That Donald Trump Jr. kind of said, I'm not, but my father is, and that's that. Like it just kind of got hushed up. And I had wondered in my mind, if it got back to me that Trump said that, if it maybe got back to the Adelsons that Trump said that, you don't take $100 million from a family of, I would say, gangsters, right? You're in gambling. It's not exactly an industry. I'm talking about Sheldon. That's what they made the money on. You don't take that kind of money and then express to people that you're planning on just screwing the person over. I just have a lot of questions about that. And it all transpired very quickly. And I just wanted to share that, especially in the context of Tucker saying we should have some grace, and clearly something happened and presidents have been assassinated in the past. And I do think that we have all noted this shift in him since Butler, Pennsylvania. Again, and that is all I know. Not pointing the finger or assigning any blame, but I think we all have questions about how quickly Trump wanted to sort of close the book on Butler, Pennsylvania.
I don't want to close the book on Butler, Pennsylvania, because I want to know what's really going on. I think a lot of people want to know what's really going on. But in the end, do we really need to know what's going on? Or do we already know what needs to be done? What needs to be done is the severing of the relationship between the United States and Israel. That is where it begins. That's where it ends. We have some very powerful people that run this country, and their interests run directly through that little state that should not exist. And if we don't do something about it quickly, it's going to blow up in our faces much worse than people could possibly imagine or even understand. That's the real danger here. And the one thing that cannot be understated, and I think Candace is really hitting this on the head very effectively. If we do not, or if we allow the truth to be distorted in any way, eventually the lie becomes so great that it becomes a different form of truth, because that's what people will ultimately believe. We can't let that happen. So why do I say that? I came across a video recently that I never had an opportunity to play because, again, you know, we run a very tight ship here. We try to keep things as top of mind and as relevant as we possibly can keep it. But I really want to hone in here on a story that I think people are going to come to the realization, and we're going to talk about it on Monday. I didn't want to address it tonight because I know that J Street is an issue that is very near and dear to Jen. J Street came out today and said that they are not going to be backing Israel anymore. But as Jen and I would both agree unanimously, it's just a sleight of hand. It's total bullshit. I wouldn't believe it, no matter what they say. And if they feel that they're doing it for political gamesmanship because it's hurting them right now in more ways than they actually had anticipated, we've got a really lovely story for you, my friend. That's how we're going to close out the evening. We got to close out the evening on a positive note. So stick around. It's really appreciate all of our international contingent being here. So this is why we have to keep talking about this. I want to make sure I say her name right. Batya Ungar-Sargon. See, Batya is what you call a liberal Zion. Liberal Zionism is a big problem. Do you know why it's a bigger problem than neocon Zionism? It's like the wolf and the sheep. The wolf you see, the sheep you don't. Plus, the sheep is much more palatable than the wolf. The sheep doesn't show its teeth. The wolf does. So behind the exterior, what you often find is that you can sell it through the liberal lens much easier than you can through the neocon lens. That's why Swalwell is doing as well as he's been doing in California. That's why a lot of in Israel lobby AIPAC back candidates. This is why it is a very sleight of hand with the Democratic establishment when it comes to the issue of AIPAC. Yes, AIPAC is terrible, but AIPAC is only one of several incredibly impressive, monetarily flushed with endless amounts of capital for the Zionist cause. AIPAC's bad, but you've got many others. And if we do not sever this relationship now, like as soon as humanly possible, this is the type of rewriting of history we are going to be stuck with. It may not be as impactful now, but down the road, people will forget, and then they'll look to this and they'll say, yeah, that was probably what it was all about anyway. No. Listen carefully.
Kirk was martyred for free speech, shot in the neck by a left-wing zealot who thought Charlie should die for his opinions.
So as you can see, right out of the gate, the framing has already become, oh, Charlie was killed for free speech, and it was a leftist furry that did the deed. You see, they're still going with this, even though the Tyler Robinson story has completely fallen apart. But it doesn't matter. There's a reason why people still talk about Russiagate like it's real. There's a reason why history is told through the eyes of the victors. It doesn't mean it's correct. This is also one of the detrimental aspects of Zionism. There's a reason why we are constantly reminded about it wasn't 6 million Jews, it was about 5.2 million, which is still terrible and unconscionable in terms of what happened during the Holocaust. Do you know how many Russians were killed during World War II? Do you know how many Russians were killed as a result of the famine that Stalin bestowed upon his people? How about the famine that Mao bestowed upon his people in China? Nobody talks about that the way they talk about what happened with the Nazis. And yes, they're evil, but so are the Red Army. So is Mao Zedong. You can't have one and not the other. But that's the way history gets written. And that's the problem. He who makes the gold makes the rules. And that's what they've been doing. And Batya, as you can see, is very presentable. But she says it so flippantly. Like, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, that sounds right. Because Batya she's an intelligent lady. And look at that big Star of David she wears around her neck so proudly, prominently. I can trust her. I'm speaking from the perspective of the brain-dead shitlib that thinks that she's a swell slice of bread. But she's got a heck of a lot more to say.
But Charlie wasn't just a great debater and evangelizer for conservative values. He was both a symbol of and a driving force behind a cultural shift to the right, to God, that's happening among America's youth. In 2016, President Trump wrested political power from the left. They called him illegitimate, they impeached him twice, and 66% of Democrats believed Vladimir Putin had messed with the voting machines on Election Day.
I've actually seen how voting machines get tampered with. I've seen it in person. I saw it happen in Chicago. Do you know who it happened to? It happened to Bernie Sanders against Hillary Clinton in the 2016 Democratic primary. I saw it happen the night when Bernie was cruising along and was going to win Illinois and Missouri. And then, lo and behold, things just dramatically changed late at night in specific precincts in Chicago, Illinois, and St. Louis, Missouri. Now, is that really coincidence? Or is the system designed to protect all forms of corporate special interests and capital? That's the real story, not this bullshit. But hey, whatever floats your boat, I guess. Whatever helps you sleep at night. Russiagate, Ukraine, Taiwan, Israel. If they can spew it, they'll believe it. 1984. Heck, the whole premise, as campy and silly as Batman Forever was, Val Kilmer was a great Batman. But the whole concept of, and again, this is 1995, brain on the box, yes, that's basically it. We will control you and you'll just believe what we tell you to believe. So like I said, Batya, who is a very proud liberal Zionist, is saying this in such a professional, eloquent style that resonates with the more decorum-minded type of Politico. It sounds decent. It sounds reasonable. So she has to be telling the truth. When a crazy person is saying it, like a Nick Fuentes, well, it's easy not to believe it. But you see the wolf, you don't see the sheep, or you're not as intimidated. Serpent tongue, very much so. We'll continue.
But in 2024, it became clear that the cultural power had shifted right too. Young people had shifted right. Wearing a MAGA hat and doing the YMCA dance suddenly became cool. Believing in God became edgy. Being a committed father and husband became subversive. While the Democrats, encumbered by all the institutions they now control, including corporate America, became kind of cringe and lame and fake. Charlie Kirk embodied that combination of the political and cultural shift to the right that we are witnessing in America in real time.
There is no political shift to the right in the sense of the way she's describing it. Yes, I think more people are rejecting the satanic behavior that is the Zionist cult. That doesn't necessarily mean that this whole country is getting on their knees and citing Bible verses. We are living in dystopian level times economically as well as politically, but they're interconnected anyway. And yet, she would have you believe that Charlie Kirk is a martyr. He absolutely would have supported war in Iran. He absolutely supports Israel. And he's a neocon. Not that his organization wasn't completely taken over by the neocon Zionist class. Yes, he was the face. But what's he going to do? He's just one person. He's flesh. And now he's dead. Why? Because he's just Charles Kirk, another human being like anybody else. You fuck with power. You fuck with money and power. You fuck with the fucking war machine. Oh, we'll kill you. Who the fuck are you? I can say all the things I'm saying right now, but I'm not in the way of capital. Charlie Kirk legitimately got in the way of capital. He got in the way of wartime capital. There's no coming back from that. You're a dead man. When they make you an offer you can't refuse, you don't take the money. You're in for life. Charlie didn't understand that. It was you, Charlie. You could have been a contender, but instead, you were just a bum, and they made you one in the end.
This is the real reason the left hated him so much. And honestly, it's the real reason that they hate Trump so much. Many Democrats don't feel like they lost an election or their grip on the culture. They feel like they lost what was supposed to be theirs in perpetuity. It's ironic. They paint Donald Trump as a threat to democracy, but they are really outraged that they have to still compete in one. And as I said, the real appeal here, more than anything else, and this is why I've always said the Democrats, it's not a question of Democrats and Republicans. It's a question of branding of the empire. Democrats are more dangerous than Republicans when it comes to selling empire. Batya,
identifies as a Democrat. And there's a reason why people gravitate to that message. There's a reason why the Democrats, including in their haste today, making a statement regarding J Street. J Street is if there is a nonprofit that represents liberal Zionism in totality, it's J Street. J Street comes out and makes the statement that they made today because they understand that it's all about getting through the next election. The Democrats have an opportunity to wipe the floor with the GOP in the midterms. They're two sides of the same empire, but one plays for one side, the other plays for the other, and in the end, it's all about career advancement, money, power, and the like. If the Democrats get in there, there is a high likelihood that a substantial amount of bloodshed is going to continue in earnest because a lot of people will go back to sleep thinking that this is acceptable. But it's not. It's unacceptable. It is far worse than people realize. Batya is merely a vessel for the Zionist cause with a liberal bend because it's easier to digest. But it'll kill you either way. If you're enjoying this conversation, which we hope you are, please consider going over to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty, despite suppressed, yet still growing, and almost at 121,000 subscriber channel. And we do have to give a big shout out to our patrons and, of course, our contributors, super chatters for the evening. Sanenia Kumara, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. We really appreciate it. Steve Spates, thank you for the $5 super sticker. Tony D, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Good to see you, my friend. And Tony D with the 27 months. Jen, Peter, your anger and justice are much needed. Tony, you've always been one of our OGs. We always appreciate seeing you here, my friend. Christopher Back, good to see you, pal. With the $10. Love you, Pete. Keep fighting. You know I will, my friend. Citizen Pendejo with the 50 pesos. There's a lifetime's nothing happens, and there's 2026 since 9/10 when lifetime's worth happen. One example, Jen's prophecy comes true. TW will rejoin China. Hey, I don't blame him. It's a very sensible move. From a logistics standpoint, they should do that. Good business in more ways than one. Carson Cruz, great to see you, my friend. Thank you for the $10. Anyone that fell into Epstein's orbit was sullied, defiled, or worse. Melania fell into that orbit. A counter-narrative. She is going public to save herself from her deranged and genocidal husband. Hey, she wants to get herself on the record right now because there's a possibility that maybe things are actually falling apart within this administration. As long as they're taking down Israel with them, I'm here for it, my friend. Jim Talib with the $5. Thank you so much for the super sticker. Appreciate you as always, my friend. Citizen Pendejo with the 20 pesos. The idea of Epstein, I feel bad for Melania. I kind of feel bad, but then she decided to go out and make the statement that she did. She's very much under contract. HDEUO. 7738. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Appreciate you, my friend. Alex Scott Mittens with the $2. Awesome podcast. Hit like and subscribe. We hope you'll all do so. We still got some more stories to cover. We're not done yet. Kenman G with the 279 Canadian A. Batya Ungar-Sargon. Wasn't she a villain in Star Wars? Yes, she was definitely a villain. The name reminds me of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. There is that similarity there. Libertarian Social Dem, great to see you, my friend, with the $4.99. All those Central Euro right-wing leaders like Orban, Poland, etc., support Zionism like no other, I wonder. I know why most of them in Israel come from there. That is correct. This is also one of the great tie-ins that we have seen between Israel and Ukraine. It's not coincidence. It never was. Citizen Bendejo with the 20 pesos. Breezy Politics took care of Batya Sargon. Breezy Politics does a lot of solid work. So it does not surprise me in the least that they did so there with Batya. Wanker Tanker with the $2. Move to amend org also. Yes, you mean moveon.org. Yes, moveon.org is very suspicious as well. And Mrs. Richie Blackmore with the $5. Batya did an interview with Michael Tracy recently where she praised his Epstein stance and flirted with him like crazy. She's gross. Hey, listen, I have been around Michael Tracy. I have been around a lot of people in politics. A lot. I've been around famous people, important people, blah, 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 blah. I have never been around somebody with worse body odor than Michael Tracy, period. His body odor was so bad that I can still remember it to this day. Congratulations, Michael. If you're hearing this, please take a shower. Do yourself a lot of good. Anyway, back to the regularly scheduled programming. One more time, if you are so inclined, remember to go over to patreon.com/revolutionary change. Any and all support is tremendously appreciated. So, I understand why Dan Bilzerian is doing what he's doing. I don't agree with it because I don't trust him. And because if you're going to run for political office, you should at least know what you're getting yourself into. Now, do I think that Bilzerian will raise some decent change running against Porky Pig Fine? Yes. But anybody who's going to run against him is going to raise a decent amount of money. Bilzerian has a big platform. I got to be honest with you, Asya. Bilzerian would actually be better suited to run for president than he would to run for a congressional seat, especially one that's on the other side of the country that he knows nothing about. What does he know about the 6th Congressional District of Florida? What does he know about the people who live there? Probably not much. He may have a lot of money. He'll do a lot of mailers, but does he really understand what it takes to run for Congress? I'm not sure. And I'm not saying it's not the people's house. It is. But there's one thing that a lot of people in the South in particular don't like. They don't like carpetbaggers. They don't like people who are not from there. They also are not going to like a significant amount of Dan's history of debauchery and hedonism. That does not play well in conservative Christian parts of the United States. And the 6th Congressional District in the central area of Florida, that does not play. The part of Florida, I see it in the chat, the part of Florida that Fine represents is not Zioland. It's not. Which is why I think he could be defeated. But Dan Bilzerian is going to do the job? We already have enough problems as it is. Do we really need to waste a few $1 million on a congressional race? Remember, Randy Fine, for all of his habitual and gargantuan faults, is the incumbent. He has the incumbent's advantage. He can plug in and put the screws to as many elected officials at the county level. I mean, Brevard County alone, he is Mr. Brevard County. That doesn't mean he can't be defeated. But again, is this a county commissioner, a conservative county commissioner who is challenging Randy Fine in the GOP, who has roots in the area, who knows thousands upon thousands of the voters already, challenging him? Well, Aaron Baker's running against him. But no, Dan Bilzerian has decided he's going to run against him with no spot. Dan, we have mutual friends. You've seen our posts. You've acknowledged our posts. Acknowledge this. I understand why you're doing it, because we all want to get that fat fuck out of there as fast as possible. But this is not it. If you do not understand what it takes to run a congressional race, the fact that you are going to need to bring in somebody who's local, who wants to get involved, who is going to be willing to overlook all of the things that they're going to throw at you, because they will. They'll address the fact that you're a carpetbagger, address the fact that you've led a hedonistic lifestyle in a conservative Christian district. They'll address the fact that you have no elected experience whatsoever. You probably have never truly volunteered in politics before. This is not going to work in your favor. And you are going to need tens of thousands of people that don't know you from a hole in the wall to vote for you. That's a very difficult lift, even with a few $1 million. You're probably right. He might very well. And I will keep saying it. Dan Bilzerian, especially if he were to run on the libertarian ticket for president of the United States, that would be a much more sensible move. Yes, as crazy as it sounds, I actually think Dan Bilzerian could make much better use of his platform and his time and people's money if he ran for president rather than running for Congress against Randy Fine. That's my opinion. I'm 1,000% behind taking Randy Fine out at all costs. And I would support Dan Bilzerian's efforts, even though I have big disagreements with him, against Randy Fine. But I also believe that this is, I don't want to necessarily say that, this is a foregone conclusion, because I'm not going to say that. But this is this is a circumstance where if you don't know what you're getting yourself into ahead of time, because it does seem that he did this on a whim. Now, maybe he was always planning to, I don't know. But it does seem like a whimmy type of a move. But I also know that if there's one thing, now again, I don't see this as serving necessarily, to win a congressional seat. But the one thing that he does well, he knows how to perform in front of the cameras. He does a very good job. I cannot deny that. For some reason, Epstein Files Extraordinaire, yes, that's correct, Harvey Levin of TMZ decided to drag Bilzerian onto his show and give him a platform, a national platform, to talk about his congressional race. I think it's safe to say where this conversation was going to go right off the bat. So here we go.
Your opponent, this fat Jew. So he's not from Israel, but you called a guy in Florida this fat Jew. How is that not anti-Semitic?
What in the fuck does it have to do with anything? The fact that he is Jewish, calling him a fat Jew, which you may not like. Again, it's derogatory, sure. However, what does being from Israel have to do with anything here? It has nothing to do with it at all.
Well, he's a Jewish supremacist, and he puts Israel before America, and I think that he should be tried for treason.
This fat Jew is anti-Semitic.
Yes,
Dan.
I mean that's what you say, but how about every single time
that's what I know. I don't say it. I know
he
it.
literally talks about how Muslims are lower than dogs. So is that Islamophobic?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is. And that wouldn't be, that's not appropriate for him to say either. If he had said that.
But he does all the time. And he tweets that. And he's a senator.
Are you anti-Semitic?
No, I'm not anti-Semitic. I think that, that's kind of a made-up term. I think the Palestinians are the real Semites. Is it a made-up term? Yes, because if you look at what a Semite
was
is.
Was Hitler anti-Semitic?
What's that?
Was Hitler anti-Semitic?
Like I said, it's the term is focused solely on Jews, but actual Semites are the Arabs, and Palestinians are Semites as well, and they actually have more DNA lineage to that region than any of the Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews that have taken it from them. So I kind of have issue with that term and how it's been hijacked to only talk about Jews.
So if you want to call it anti-Jewish, then you can call it anti-Jewish.
Well, I'm not going to call this anti-Jewish. When you say that this fat Jew, you could take another race and you could use another epithet, but you're anti-Semitic, Dan.
Keep in mind, Harvey Levin is in the Epstein files and was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein. I don't care what Harvey Levin says. There are emails from Jeffrey Epstein referring to Harvey Levin as a friend. So just remember that part. But hey, I don't blame Bilzerian one iota for going on TMZ. When you are trying to, again, I don't agree with him running against Randy Fine, but when it comes to building a reputation, building a brand, if you will, because you are attempting to do something like running for office at least the federal level or perhaps something bigger, you take whatever national coverage you can get. And the one thing we have learned from Trump, name ID is everything. Any publicity is good publicity, no matter how they frame it. So from that standpoint, yes. And the other standpoint, which is imperative here, is that Bilzerian is absolutely correct about the use of the term anti-Semitic. You want to say anti-Jewish? Sure. That's becoming more accepted now because people realize that this is a very big problem. What I will also say is that these terms are just dying. They're not resonating. No one cares anymore. Nobody who was on the fence is going to hear Harvey Levin say, you're anti-Semitic. And now all of a sudden their opinion's changing. No, if anything, the only person who's getting more support is Dan Bilzerian. So I guess thanks Harvey Levin for putting him on. You did him a hell of a big favor.
I'm not. I have Jewish friends.
Oh, some of your best friends are Jewish?
Paint all Jews with one brush, but he paints all Muslims with one brush, and it's accepted. And for some reason in this country, it is okay to just blast Muslims, bash them. You look at what Bill Maher said about Muslims. I mean, it's this double standard, and I don't like the double standard. And I look at him as a Jewish supremacist. He believes that, you know, Jews are better than other people, and he puts Israel before America. And so
and that's true. He does believe that Jews are superior, and he puts Israel before America. And that will resonate with certain people. This is why, like I said, he is not afraid. And in the sort of dawning of a new political and economic era that we're entering, at whatever pace, he's labeling the problem, because Harvey Levin started the problem from the very beginning of the conversation. He interlocked Jews with Israel right out of the gate, and Bilzerian was having no part of it, to his credit. But this is, again, the problem. The Zio scum will attach Judaism to Zionism until the ideology is dead in the water. Now, it's not there yet. And Norman Finkelstein is one of the all-time great guests on our channel. No, I prefer to eat Hamas raw. I don't like to have anything on top of it or protecting it. It doesn't need to be protected. I go right in. I muff dive on that Hamas anytime. He's got a little bit more to say.
Okay, so if you've got a black friend that you don't like, do you use the N-word on him?
No, I don't.
Well, then what's the difference when you use the word fat Jew for a Jew you don't like?
Well, is Jew the same as because that is not that's not, one is a slur, right? And one is describing a religion. So you can't compare the two.
Really?
You know,
there's a way
how can you compare those two?
There's a way you say it, Dan, that the intent is the same.
It's not the same at all.
Here. So
one is a slur, one is a racial slur that I don't use, and the other one is describing an ethnicity.
Well, you just used it. But we have done this before on our channel. We have addressed all different derogatory words like the N-word in proper context. And what they're suggesting is, no, you can't even use it in any context. Because again, words have feelings now all of a sudden. No, again, context is everything. And I will defend, this is why I'm a free speech absolutist. And so is Jen. Either you accept that there's nuance in context, or there isn't. Now, again, it's not a word that I would use either, but I'll defend your right to use it. We are skating on thin ice. We just are. And if we don't accept the fact that people want to change, because somebody pays his bills, that's why. The change is coming whether people want it or not. So we'll finish it out.
Just used it.
Well, are we adults? Can we talk about a word?
Sure.
Was a word so offensive that that it just, you can't say it? We have to say the
Yeah, the
N-word,
answer to that is yes.
So I want to ask a question.
People are too sensitive.
Yes, they are. Now, turnabout, fair play. Let's have some fair play here. Harvey Levin brought on the swine himself.
Bilzerian said he called you a fat Jew.
Well, look, thanks for having me. I've had people call me names my entire life. It doesn't bother me. I think it's part of the territory, unfortunately, of being Jewish in America. But perhaps, Harvey, to try to explain where you were coming from, when you refer to me or someone that way, it's not being stated to make a statement of fact. It's being stated as a slur. He's making that statement, not that I'm a Jew because it's factual. He's making that statement because he views that as some sort of negative thing. Now, I'd never heard of this guy before until a couple of days ago, but having watched your interview, it's clear that he simply doesn't like Jews. In America, you're allowed to do that. I don't think it's going to work out to become a congressman having that perspective.
Well, maybe it won't, but just the fact that you are giving Bilzerian credibility as an opponent is not going to help you, Randy Swine. But the difference between Swine and a lot of other detestable incumbents, Debbie Wasserman Schultz never once acknowledged Jen's existence. Randy Swine has already gone out of his way to acknowledge Dan Bilzerian, and their election is not until the end of August. So to say that this is well, sure, he is. He gives Jews a bad name, but he's giving Bilzerian exactly what any political candidate would want. He's giving him recognition. That's considered a cardinal sin in politics. You don't ever address your opponent unless you absolutely have to. Randy Fine has absolutely no reason to address him, but he's addressing him. He's giving him power. I would never accuse Fine of being a smart guy. And in this case, I think maybe he just loves a good fight. Maybe that's what it is.
And I went and looked up some of the things that you've been quoted as saying, and I got to say, Dan Bilzerian's right. I mean, unless you want to say these were incorrect, but we need more Islamophobia, not less. Fear of Islam is rational.
Mass expulsion. Muslim leaders are terrorists. Starve away. Advocating nuclear action.
Actually, I would imagine that when President Trump said that there was going to be an entire civilization wiped out, based on this, I would say you were cheering that.
Well, look, I think you've taken a lot of different things and you've smushed them together. I don't know that you've provided the context for any of them.
There is no context. You put them out in tweets. You put out a message celebrating the dismemberment from a bomb of a Palestinian child. It's on record. But there's context. That's important. The only context here is that you should not exist in politics. Whatever the hell you do in your private life. I mean, we all know if he gets taken out of Congress, he's going to go work for one of the Israel lobby henchmen. That's what he does. That's his modus operandi. But a guy like that, he should have no power. Remember, he only started wearing that little hat on his head when he got to Congress.
What I would say is this. Unlike Dan Bilzerian, I guess, who's talking about Jews as though they're all negative, I don't believe that all Muslims are bad. I think many are good. I think the difference is that also doesn't mean that I think that no Muslims are bad. And if you look at what's happened since the conflict with Iran began, 5 American Muslims in 4 states launched 4 separate terrorist attacks because they believed they were acting in accordance with their faith. When it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, you can sort of excuse it. But when it's been so many that we've seen over the past 25 years, some fear of this philosophy is a reasonable thing to have. And my issue is there are those who say because not every American Muslim is a terrorist, we're not allowed to say that any are a terrorist.
Well, no, but you're opening the door to someone like Dan Bilzerian saying that he's had a bad experience with 5 Jews, and so therefore all the Jews are bad. Right. They're all fat Jews.
But I would clarify. I'm not saying all Muslims are bad. And by the way, I think is saying all Jews are bad. By the way, every group has bad apples in it. That doesn't mean that the entire group is bad.
No,
and that's where I would push back.
So I would ask you, Swine, are you implying that you're one of the good apples? Are you implying that you represent Judaism? By the way, I want to know what the hell that is on his forehead. Does he grow hair everywhere and he shaved his head with a razor? Or cut his head with a razor? Who the hell knows? But I got to tell you, there really is something to be said for being able to stand in front of a mirror that can actually fit your girth and looking at yourself in the mirror and understanding how vile a human you are, because you are vile. You are pig vomit vile. So be it as it may.
By the way, every group has bad apples in it. That doesn't mean that the entire group is bad.
No,
and
that's true. But I want to point to something.
Every group is bad. There's no group that's perfect out there.
Okay, but I want to point to something. Because this, to me, may be one of the most troublesome.
Said earlier this year.
Asked dogs or Muslims. You were asked about that, and you said if they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. Mm-hmm. How is that not painting an entire group? Because that's not the same as 4 or 5 people or a lot of people. That's saying Muslims are worse than dogs.
Okay, let's give Harvey credit where credit's due. He clearly is a Zio and he's scum, but he's playing it fair. And in all fairness, I too prefer dogs to people, and there's a reason why, because there's a lot of people like Randy Swine in the world, and it is an unfortunate situation. But Harvey, he's right about this one.
That's not what it says. And again, I think you need to provide the context. I'll provide the context.
Okay.
One of Mayor Mondami's key advisors, Muslim advisors in New York, said dogs are not clean. They should be banned as indoor pets because Muslims coming to New York believe they violate their religion. Finally, Islam is coming to New York City. My point was a very clear one. If you're going to make me choose between my dog and people who want to come to this country and say for them to live here, we must ban dogs, the choice is an easy one. And I would put this back on you. I believe that's a view that 90% of Americans agree. Do you believe if immigrants want to come to this country and they don't want dogs, would you all give up your own dogs in order to make them happy?
You didn't say immigrants, you said Muslims. There are plenty of United States citizens who are Muslims.
I understand, and I believe the person who made the statement saying dogs are unclean. So immigrants or not, do you believe if a group of American Muslims says in order to live in this country, you must give up your dog because they believe it is unholy? I said, no, they can leave. Look, I'm Jewish, but I don't expect the grocery store to not sell pork. When my kids take matzah to school for Passover, we don't expect the school cafeteria to not serve bread.
This guy is a fucking lunatic. I have my kids bring matzah to school. I bring the matzah. You're not helping your cause, Randy. you're causing more people to not like you and your kind. Like I said, just let them talk, and they will talk themselves out of an argument. That's what he's doing.
To the students that go there. America is a Christian nation. I'm Jewish. I love being here. I love living here. But that's the way it is. And my point is there are groups of people who are coming to this country that demand that we submit to their faith in order for them to practice it. And I stand by what I said. If I have to choose between my dog and a group of people who say I can't have it, it is not a difficult choice. And I would point out the overwhelming majority of Americans agree with
where's
me.
Where's the movement to ban dogs? I haven't heard Mandami say that.
Mandami has said, and you're pointing to one person in New York who said this.
Great question. That's a very fair question. This is this one person who, by the way, is a major leader in New York. But there are other leaders in New York, and I could regale you for an hour with quotes about imams in mosques who said the most unbelievable things. But in places that are a few years ahead of us, like the United Kingdom, they are making moves to ban dogs as a result of this. This is not outside the mainstream. But look, to get back to Bilzerian, I don't know how long we have. I would simply say this. You ask about him as an opponent. A guy who's a foreigner, he's a dual citizen, who has said Donald Trump is a pedophile rapist and should be impeached. That is not a serious candidate in a Republican primary where Donald Trump got over 90%. So.
Well, maybe he's right about that. But he is a horrific human being. But that matzah statement, oh my God. Like if you're looking for reasons to just say you're a fat Jew, you just gave him one. No one talks like that. Nobody. Unless you're having a Hasbro moment, which many of them have. Because again, this is a career. This is a lucrative career. Oh, please. Let's see it again.
I want you to get this fuck where he breathes. I want you to find this Nancy boy Elliot Ness. I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burnt to the ground. I want to go to the middle of the night. I want to piss on his head.
It sounds a little tough. They might get into something there. You never know. Gabago. The fact that he mentioned pork is so on the money. That much I'm going to say. Now, I would be amiss to not address the fact that the grift, if you will, which has served certain people very well for very long and has been serving a very popular, albeit probably manufactured, podcaster in South Florida that I am sure is going to take it upon himself to get involved in this political race, whether by interviewing in studio Bilzerian or Fine or both, because that's the way that Patrick Bett's Star of David operates. The distance between where Patrick Bet-David does his podcast and where this congressional district is about 2 hours driving time on I-95. So to suggest that this will become an even bigger story would be an understatement. It's good for the clicks, and they'll make it so. So, did anybody happen to see the conversation that Mr. Star of David had with good old Piers Morgan the other day? Oh, when you understand the tie-in when it comes to Israel and the fact that he is, like so many others, just tied down and we know where the bread is being buttered. That's why I keep saying that Adam Sosnick is his AIPAC handler or his Israel lobby handler. There's no other reason why he'd be on the show. None whatsoever. But as we know, when you make your money the way that PBD made his money, it's easy to see why he makes statements like this.
Supposed to be a grandmaster. Your number one move should be protect your border, not Ukraine. If you're saying let's worry about Ukraine, maybe it's number 9 on the list. It ain't number 1 above the border. That is the most ludicrous argument I would ever make.
Well, let me ask you this.
We have to take care of America
let me ask you this.
Then we take care of everybody else.
Why should America be supporting Israel then? That's thousands of miles away.
How much money are we giving to Israel?
Billions.
How much money are we giving Israel? I'm curious. Go ahead. I'm curious. Go ahead.
Oh,
are we sending troops over there? Are we sending missiles over there?
No, but
how much money are we giving to
America
Israel? I know
does
the
spend,
dome we've given it since 1945.
America
I think $10 billion we've given to them. $3 billion is towards the dome.
Yeah.
How much money are we giving them?
Billions of dollars.
Now, I always bring this up, and I'm going to keep bringing it up. When Jen was running for Congress, I tried to get Jen an interview with PBD. And basically, they wanted me to pay them for the opportunity to have a quick phone call with PBD to determine whether or not it would be worth having Jen on the show. The cost for Sans phone call for about 5 minutes, about $1,500. Everything about him, everything about Trump, MAGA, it's just one big grift. And unfortunately, there's a lot of young people that have been taken advantage of by this. That's a huge part of the problem. And as a result, they get themselves in very deep because they're trying to make it. They're enamored with the life. No, Patrick Bet, Star of David. That's his name. Let's get it right. He's another person who fully believes in the war with Iran. Talk about bad Hasbro. Talk about bad diaspora. And everything about him screams, wolf in sheep's clothing, Patrick Vomit. Yeah, all those things. PBSOD. That's who he is. He's a Zionist for hire. That's what he is.
Not comparable to what we've given to Ukraine in 12 months, 24 months. No way. Not even close.
Isn't the principle the same? You're doing it to help them defend themselves.
No, it's not. The part with Israel is slightly different because it's both strategic, because there's only one country in Israel that has historically always been pro-America and has been an ally.
That's his argument. If this is not a guy who has based his entire life on the ability to get paid by any means necessary, then I don't know what is. This is why Adam Sosnick is a featured player on his channel. There's no reason for him to be, but if it is to his benefit career-wise, it's good. But I always saw through the snake oil salesman shtick because I'm from New Jersey. I'm from, I'm from the boiler room, if you will, if you've ever seen that movie. Like I know that environment. And there's a lot of people who are enamored with it. And listen, a handful of people in it, yeah, they're going to make a lot of money. But the overwhelming majority of people are going to suffer mightily for it. And that's what happens. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think PBD has like 5 million subscribers. Some insane number. So much of what he does is all based on the grifting system that he puts together, which is multi-level marketing. Insurance is his business. That's one of the things about being from Jersey. I can smell a grifter from a mile away. Let me tell you about all the wonderful things we're doing in our the PPT podcast and come on down. You're gonna join us for one of our masterminds, and you're gonna get to meet all of these wonderful people. And we normally charge a lot of money for this event, but we're going to charge you just a little bit because you're a subscribing member to the PPT podcast. This is going to be the opportunity of a lifetime. And yes, there are a lot of people that get taken in by that. All right, I stand corrected. He's at almost 3 million subscribers. But when you get to that level, you know, the economic opportunities are endless. He's got a lot of them. I hope you're talking about the actual Jersey Shore, not that shit of a television show. And yes, I did know Mike Sorrentino. I went to the same high school as him. Fort Lauderdale is his home base now. But the whole South Florida grifting vibe, the fake it till you make it, overly project everything that you do. PPD is doing his shtick in a part of the country that kind of embraces it. And that's why he's there. I just don't understand how people can't see through it. I wish they could.
In the Middle East, and that's Israel. Iran's not been the case since the Shah, right? Saudi Arabia now with MBS, he's trying to work and make progress to the point where Ronaldo, your friend, feels safe going out there with his family to play soccer there. These are good things that MBS and Saudi Arabia is doing. He's kind of doing what the Shah was doing back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. I like what he's doing with Saudi Arabia. But Israel, to us, a part of it is also loyalty due to our faith, where we need that country, especially what America was founded on, Judeo-Christian. That's a little bit deeper than that. But with Ukraine, the guy's an opportunistic guy. Respect to him that's coming up to America, making everybody feel guilty and raising money. I salute him for being a great beggar and a great fundraiser.
This is also part of the reason why I think there was a Charlie Kirk shout out on the Yankee Stadium scoreboard when he was assassinated. I think PPD may have called in a favor. But this is an example of what we should never forget once the Zionist state collapses. There's going to be a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to try to rewrite history, that are going to try to say that this never happened, that I was never fully on board with Israel. I had no idea about the atrocities that they were doing. Document all of this and remind people that the tribunals will be swift and they will be brutal. And certain people are going to be made an example of that many didn't think was possible. We deserve better. We deserve to live in a country that actually wants to fight for truth and justice on behalf of humanity. Now, this is where we will close this evening. It is an older clip, not that old, handful of months, but it is a reminder of just how far behind we are from other parts of the world when it comes to real activism, doing what is necessary to actually break the Zionist state. For many years, Greece was often considered a safe haven for the Israelis. This is a country that they would normally go to if they were trying to flee any attacks on their homeland, supposed homeland. Very cordial relationship for many years between Israel and Greece. That's a fact. But that's changed. That has changed in a profound way over the last 2.5 years. And we know this because the Greeks are not letting the Zios come and invade their country now. That's why they're going to Cyprus. That's why they had their wheels greased and was paying off Argentina with Milei, and they're going there. That's why they're going to Kenya. We're going to have to talk about that very soon. But the Greeks are once again showing what happens when you don't want the Israelis in your country. This was a cruise ship that had about 1,500 Israelis trying to get to Greece. And this was, I want to say, in December, I believe, somewhere around there.
Palestinian flag unfurled in the port of Agios Nikolaos on Crete, a farewell to Israeli tourists on board the Crown Iris and a gesture of solidarity with the people the Israeli state is starving in Gaza.
Now, if that's not one of the most beautiful sights you could ever hope to see, I don't know what is. Now, that is a big flag. I would say it's got to be at least 50 feet long. At least 30 to 40 feet. Judging from the distance. But that's a big flag.
The Crown Iris, no stranger to such political demonstrations, responded with insults.
You better get out of the sun or you're going to turn into a tomato. You're going to burst like a cherry. But no, they're native to that part of the world. Remember that.
A day earlier, a more vocal demonstration prevented its passengers from disembarking at Heraklion.
These videos are going to be played on loop from now until the end of time, as long as that state exists. Can we count the ways how much better Greece is than Israel? At least in Greece, they have their own customs. Israel just steals them from everybody else. Greece has a much more beautiful flag, even though they're both blue and white. They have much more beautiful women. I can say that on good authority. They have much better food. They have an incredibly beautiful island called Santorini, which I hope to get to one day. They are exceptionally well-cultured. The dawn of Western civilization comes from Greece. Everything that Greece is, Israel is not. And while for a very long time they may have had a cordial relationship, that relationship is dying. And we know it's dying because one of the places that you would have suspected would have been taking in Israelis is Greece. They're not taking them in. And now we know why. Because Greeks have humanity in their blood. A lot of arm twisting and a lot of things could have been done. But this is a great thing to see. And the Israel high bullshit, ooh. Yeah, they're going to try to pretend like that never happened.
And it wasn't the first time. The appearance of the Crown Iris has sparked similar demonstrations on other Greek islands and ports in the past 2 months against the genocide in Gaza. Some merchants think Heraklion's loss is Agios Nikolaos' gain.
We think it's a positive thing for the cruise ship to come here. Other people may not agree, but that's their business. We know it's good for the town.
Most merchants here agree with that, but not all. Vasilis Hadzidakis has made this sign the centerpiece of his sales pitch.
We put the banner up every time an Israeli cruise ship comes in. In the beginning, it was just me, but now there are 5 of us. We want to send an anti-Zionist message. Not all merchants are the same. Some of us don't put shekels above humanity.
Peaceful Jews welcome. Zionist killers go home. How about Zionist killers go straight to The Hague? Turkey invaded Iran from the rear. Would Greece help? I don't know about that one.
Most Greeks have a favorable view of Jewish people, according to opinion polls, but not of Israel and the Israeli government. Only 1 in 5 Greeks approves of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and only 1 in 3 Greeks has a favorable view of the state of Israel. Extra police and Coast Guard forces were bussed into Agios Nikolos to form a security cordon around the ship. But many here feel that even if individual Israelis are not to blame for what their government is doing, their enjoyment of Greece taints those who enable it. John Psaropoulos, Al Jazeera, at the port of Agios Nikolos in Crete.
And there is the most important statement of all. While the Greeks do not blame individual Israelis necessarily for the fact that their government is doing what they're doing, they also know that they are not above responsibility. Do you know why? Because as poll after poll after poll, again, polls are overrated 1,000%, but consistency in polls, that's real. And when poll after poll after poll of Israelis say the same thing, that the overwhelming majority of their people not only support the Netanyahu government, but support the genocide. That's what you call too far gone people. And they should not be given a reprieve. They should be met with swift and brutal justice. And perhaps that is in their future. It is upon us, it is our responsibility to ensure that that is the case. What more countries out there will do the same? It's one thing if you're a country in a faraway part of the world, East Asia, the northern Scandinavian countries. It's another thing entirely when you're right there. And Greece is right there along the Mediterranean. You could, I'm not going to say you could swim to, I'm not going to say you're going to swim the Mediterranean Sea to get to Greece from Israel, but you could take a quick boat ride. Very close. If the Greeks have said, I'll assume that that's a favorable statement. I appreciate you checking in. But this is a big deal. And as I said, as soon as the consensus in this country is that Israel no longer has a leg to stand on, they will not stand. They'll fall apart. And hopefully that'll happen sooner rather than later. And hopefully, if there's an opportunity to see the execution of Ben-Gvir, he'd be the first one I'd want to see. And hopefully we'll get to see it. Kudos to the Greeks. It's all Greek to me. A country I would love to see as soon as can be. Hope you've all enjoyed this evening. It's never easy to manage all on my own, but we did it, and Jen helped out a big deal in the background. So for the final time tonight, we want to give a big shout out to you super chatters. We cannot thank you enough. Remember, we are also on Rumble. We are also on Instagram, Revolutionary Change. Make sure you're subscribed. Freedom in Palestine. I love it. It's all Greek to me, buddy. So let us continue with our super chatters. Wanker Tacker with the $2. No, move to amend money, not speech, Core, not speech. Thank you, my friend. Libertarian Social Dem, always appreciate you. Thankfully, for minus South Florida, Florida, Pop is not Zio. Not really. Thank you very much for the $1.99. Pirate Justin with the $2. I did not have base Bilzerian on my bingo card. No, he's made some salient points for sure. Miss Richie Blackmore with the $5. I'm tired of people being offended over words while trying to excuse genocide and ethnic cleansing. Hey, people's feelings matter. And Kenman G with the 279 Canadian A. Peter, was the situation a himbo in high school? I don't know what a himbo is, but we had a similar group of friends. He was we had mutual friends, if you will. He was 2 years ahead of me. And I actually went to, if anybody knows the Jersey Shore, I met up with friends one night at Jenkinson's on the boardwalk. And as I am getting, this is in Point Pleasant, as I am going inside this venue, I'm walking inside. They are showing up with their man. Yeah, I would definitely say that Sorrentino. I'll tell you a little interesting thing about Mike in a minute. So I'm walking to Jenkinson's on the boardwalk in Point Pleasant. And as I'm walking in, the vans pull up and you see Mike and Ronnie and Snooky and all of them jump out of the van. And there's like a whole bunch of people there, like surrounding them. And they're all walking into Jenkinson's. And I'm thinking, like, you kind of like are ruining my night here. Like, I don't actually want to go like in now, because now you're going to be dealing with a whole bunch of people that are just going to, I mean, there is an addiction that people have towards celebrity that is very unhealthy, and it's very American. It's not as big in other parts of the world. One thing I will say about Sorrentino, he runs an organization with his wife today for rehab at the Jersey Shore. And we'll just say my brother-in-law, my dad's fiance's son, works for him. And it's been a very good opportunity for him. So I'm not going to say that some people don't get to a point where they try to give back in some capacity. As long as he's doing good, hey, that's always good to see. But in terms of the whole celebrity component, Mike Sorrentino was just a guy who went to Manalapan High School and got cast in a show basically about nothing, about stereotypical Guido Italians at the Jersey Shore. That does not paint Italians in any way of a positive light. But people were into that shit. I don't have time for that stuff. The issues that matter are the ones that we have to focus on here. This upcoming week, Jen and I will be in DC. We'll be with Doctors Against Genocide. There will be a lot to discuss. And as we cover in the halls of Congress, hopefully, we'll see what happens. I want to thank you all one more time for coming on here. I want you to make sure that you've hit that like button. You should make sure that you subscribe. We'll have our regular show on Monday. We thank you all. We love you all. And we appreciate you all. And free Palestine. Good night, guys.